everybody doing? I hope you all are having an absolutely, absolutely wonderful time. Hope you are enjoying your week. I hope you are enjoying your day. But listen, we got something we got to talk about a little bit. Y'all know how it is. We got something that we just got to talk about. What is y'all doing in the chat? Somebody said something about a tambourine. What's going? It's too early. Anyway, fam, listen. A lot happened with that Supreme Court case. I know, and I hope it doesn't happen today. The other day, the whole thing just cut off. And I apologize to everybody who was watching the Patreon. It was 40 minutes in, so it wasn't like the end of the world. But my goodness, things just cut off in the midst of your going and your goings on. But please hit the like button. Please subscribe if this is your first time. If this is your first time here and you like what you hear, subscribe. And if you don't like it, unsubscribe. How about that? But fam, sometimes something that happens, and this is something that just happens, and ain't nothing we can too much do about it at the time when it happens. But sometimes what happens is that you in the middle of something, you don't even know you in the middle of something. And you doing good. You running a good race, but it don't feel like you running a good race and nothing going on because your chest is on fire. Right? It don't feel like no movement is happening. But I want you all to think about this Supreme Court case. Those of you who have read it and paid particular attention to it. Those of you who all have paid particular attention to it, I want you to think back. Now, when I say think back, what is Yvette talking about? Think back. Think back to what? Well, I'm going to show you. There was when we talk about, if you go and look at that Supreme Court oral arguments that we just saw, if you go and listen to it, or if you go and read it, they reference two cases, Bakke and Grutter. Those are the two cases that are referenced. Now, I want to take your memory all the way back. And if I can find it, it's so much I got in here. I know I'm not going to use all of it. Lord have mercy. If you go all the way back, what you will see, this is Grutter, right? What you will see is the language that is used here is of, and you can go all the way through it. It's the language of Native Americans. It's the language of African Americans. It's the language of Hispanics. Go and take a look at it. The language they use is that language. When you come all the way forward, though, listen to me, fam, listen to me carefully. When you come all the way forward to this hearing, what you hear and what you see is something very, very different. They start talking about lineage. They start talking about descendants of slavery. They start talking about whether slavery in and of itself, right? They start talking about whether descendants of slavery are race neutral. There's a lot going on, but I want you to pay particular attention to that, and I'm going to bring it up at the end of the show. But understand what that means. That means that we have, ADOS, the movement, we have changed and deconstructed race to the extent that the way we are spoken about at the Supreme Court is not, we're not spoken about as just blacks. Yes, there's African American, but it's American descendants of slavery, descendants of enslaved people. It's that sort of thing. That is the construct, and everything comes out of that construct. Every other type of description comes out of that construct of who we are. And that's why we said that's always the most important thing. Coming from slavery, because slavery is the thing. It's that first, it's the original. Like coming out of slavery is the original sin that everything else comes out of. So if you leave that out of it, everything else you can have everything else that comes out of that, from Reconstruction all the way to Jim Crow. You can have, it doesn't matter. Everything starts right there. And you have to capture that. Now, I want to bring up something else, because one of the things that we have to understand in terms of this Supreme Court case, even before I get into it, I want to bring up Bakke, and I want to just bring everybody's attention to some of the things that Thurgood Marshall said, because if you all, that case was fractured. There were like 6 dissents or something like that. I put it up on Twitter today. You have to understand that this triangulation that Democrats do and that they've always done has always been a failure for us. Is it as bad as overt? It is as overt racism? Of course not. But It has never been the thing that we needed, and it's the thing that replaced real affirmative action with diversity. And so, when we talk about Becky, when we talk about that case that got decided, I just want you to listen to a little bit of what Thurgood Marshall had to say about this case, right? And I want you to just think about that and think about where we are today. And this is Thurgood. Today's judgment ignores the fact that for several hundred years, Negroes have been discriminated against, not as individuals, but rather solely because of the color of their skins. Now, this was considered when this case was decided. Race was lineage. When you don't have hardly anybody else there, that's what it is. That person is black. This person is white. That is now antiquated, but you got to think about what Thurgood is talking about and the time that Thurgood is talking about it. It is unnecessary in the 20th century, in 20th century America, to have individual Negroes demonstrate that they have been victims of racial discrimination. The racism of our society has been pervasive. So pervasive that none, regardless of wealth or position, has managed to escape its impact. The experience of Negroes in America has been different in kind, not just in degree, from that of other ethnic groups. How did we get so far away from this? It is not merely the history of slavery alone, but also that a whole people were marked as inferior by the law, and that mark has endured. The dream of America as the great melting pot has not realized for the Negro. Because of his skin color, he never even made it into the pot. I would take it further. I would say that the Negro was the kindling for the pot. We are the fire that burned the pot, so we burn so everybody else can boil in the melting pot. That's what it has been. And so that's where we are. But when you look at Becky was decided on Bill Clinton's mend it, don't end it. Let's have some diversity. Well, we can't say it's racist if it's diversity, right? It don't help the Negro. It don't help the Negro. So let me come out of that for a second. Let's go into the Supreme Court case itself. And we're just going to hop around a little bit. Fam, we don't got to be here all day, but we're going to hop around a little bit. We like these kinds of exercises. We are building a political culture, right? So let's just talk about diversity for a second, because Kagan asked what I think is an interesting question. She said, this is a little bit off the track here, but you made a reference earlier in your remarks. She's talking to the other, to the counsels arguing before the court about gender differences. And there's a lot of statistical evidence that suggests that colleges now, when they apply gender neutral criteria, get many more women than men. Assume that continues to be true, so that using gender neutral criteria, men are 30% of a class or 35%. And the university said, that's neither healthy for our university life, nor is it healthy for society, that men are underrepresented or undereducated as compared to women. You see where can you see where she's going here? Could a university put a thumb on the scales and say, it's important that we ensure that men continue to receive college educations at not perfect equality, but like roughly in the same ballpark. So what she's saying is this. And even if she didn't mean to say it this way, she said it this way to me. What she's saying is, honestly, if we're going to use diversity as diversity is the metric, right? And let's say it's race neutral, but ain't no men getting educated. It's race neutral, and ain't no men getting educated. So what you gonna do? Can you tip the scale in favor? If this is the case, can you tip the scale in favor of men? Now black men ain't getting educated at them levels anyway. But presumably she's not talking about them, because we're taking them out. That's the erasure of the moment, right? So we're talking about men. Could you tip the scale in favor of them? Well, let's continue, because that raised an very interesting question. That is the subject to a somewhat lesser level of scrutiny than racial classifications. So even if, and this is him answering, so even if they could just justify them under this court's equal protection jurisprudence, I don't think it follows that they can justify racial classifications, and Justice Kagan interrupts. She says, yeah, I mean, you're right about the levels of scrutiny, but that would be peculiar, wouldn't it? Like white men get the thumb on the scale, but people who have been kicked in the teeth by society for centuries do not. You understand what she's saying? She's saying, so we're saying diversity, we can consider all sorts of things. And this was kind of the crux of the thing. So we can consider all these other sorts of things if we're going to just consider diversity. We can consider a lot of things, but we can't consider the one thing that has fastened this one group of people to the bottom. And it's not just us, but less if you're talking about the group that's been kicked in the teeth more than anybody's been kicked in the teeth, it's us. So you're telling me that, you know, this probably won't happen because of gender law, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're talking about diversity, I think you could see a time or a place where this might be a thing that somebody would say, you know, there are no men, what are we going to do about it? But then you're telling us in here that we can't consider race when race is a thing that was created to tie a group of people to the bottom. That is curious. That is peculiar, isn't it? Well, let's continue. Everybody had a lot to say. Justice Kavanaugh, you're asking us to overrule Grutter, but I first want to understand what you think Grutter itself means. It had language in there about a 25-year limit. The decision was in 2003. The current admission cycle is for the class of 27. It's going to be too late to do anything about that cycle. The next is the class of 28. When do you read or do you calculate to extend, to the extent you consider it at all, the 25-year limit? Now, let me pause right there and say the 25-year limit is not a limit. It's more of a suggestion from what I understand in the limit. But let's continue on, child. How do, and more broadly, just how should we think about that sentence, which was part of 4 important paragraphs in Grutter about the importance of race-conscious decision-making being time-limited and temporary? Mr. Strawberry, so we do not understand the 25 limit to somehow to have a hard and fast requirement. Certainly different justices on the court in Grutter took differing positions as to whether it should be. Kavanaugh interrupts again, and he says, so you think it could go for 35, 50 years? And he goes, Strawbridge, well, I think that the language in Grutter at least had an aspirational element to it, but it was aspirational for a reason. Now, this isn't the best answer to this question, right? This is not the best answer to this question. And here goes something. And Grutter definitely, in those paragraphs that precede that clause, make very clear that they want the use of race to be diminishing over time. And they want colleges to be seriously looking at how to get away from race. Now, here's a question that I have. I don't understand how you get away from race when you haven't fixed race. That 25-year, it assumed that America would become or would becoming a much better country. I don't think that assumed that there would be an insurrection at the Capitol, that we would have this race baiting, this reverse. I don't think that was assumed. You have to listen. If you expect something to heal, like if the doctor tells you, listen, I expect this thing that you got going on to heal in 4 to 6 weeks, right? The body will do its part, right? This is a country does its part. This is a people, whatever. You're going to have to do a lot. Whether you have to change the bandages, apply ointment, you're going to have to, maybe tell you to take a walk. They may tell you to put your leg up high. And if you go back and you're not healed, the doctor's going to say, what did you do with the medicine I gave you? And did you follow my instructions to the T? That is what the doctor's going to ask you. What's happened in America is that America has not followed the medicine that is necessary to kill racism in this country and create a meritocracy. Instead, America has kowtowed to Confederates, racists, and everybody else who benefits from the current hierarchy and arrangement. So you can't even have any kind of 25-year rule that makes sense because America isn't doing the work. America isn't doing the work to ensure that we stay paced. Now, I would argue that 25 years is a joke anyway. And why would you argue that? Because I've said this many a time. It takes far more time to heal a wound than inflict a wound. This country from 1619 to 2022 has been a country engaged in racist practices. You don't have to be a racist person to do it. You don't have to be a racist white person to do this. You just have to be a person who is okay with the institutions that operate the way they operate as a machine. The institutions do the work for you, so you don't have to go around running around with hoods on. No, the institutions work as they work. So as long as the institutions are doing the job of maintaining the status quo, the country is the country, right? And even if this country were moving in the right direction, it would take more than 400 years, because it took more than 400 years for us to get here. It's going to take longer than 400 years for us to get out of it. So for anybody to say, even if America was doing the best it could, 25 years is a joke. But that was Bill Clinton, right? You just got to mend it. Don't end it. You don't got to end it. Just mend it. That's not a praise. That's not the LBJ conversation. That's a man trying to keep his job. But y'all, well, Bill Clinton, he's the first black president. He ate black-eyed peas with me. Lord have mercy. Well, let's go to one other thing, because you know, it was a lot of things going. It was a lot of stuff going on here, and I apologize for if I repeat something for those of you who were with me last night. But there was also an interesting part from Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, and this was an interesting hypothetical, and I actually like the hypothetical. So let's pay attention to this. The first applicant, she's talking about two hypothetical applicants to this school, right? To this North Carolina school. She's talking about two applicants. She said the first applicant says, I'm from North Carolina. My family has been in this area for generations, since before the Civil War, and I would like you to know that I will be the 5th generation to graduate from the University of North Carolina. I now have the opportunity to do that, and given my family background, it's important to me that I get to attend this university. I want to honor my family's legacy by going to this school. The second applicant says, I'm from North Carolina. My family has been in this area for generations before the Civil War, but they were slaves. Here we go with the slaves again, and descendants of slavery, and never had a chance to attend this venerable institution. As an African American, I now have that opportunity, and given my family background, it's important to me to attend this university. I want to honor my family legacy by going to this school. Understand that both these kids have a family legacy. One white, one ADOS. They both have a family legacy. One has lineage, and one is being told to throw it away. One is being told your legacy counts, and one is being told your legacy does not. So now let's continue. Now, as I understand your no race conscious admissions, we'll continue with the same thought, everybody. These two applicants would have dramatically different opportunity to tell their family stories and to have them count. The first applicant would be able to have his family background considered and valued by the institution as part of its consideration of whether or not to admit him, while the second one wouldn't be able to because his history in many ways is bound up in race of his ancestors. We're talking about ancestry again. We're talking about lineage again. So I want to know, based on how your rule would likely play out in scenarios like that, why excluding consideration of race in a situation in which the person is not saying that his race is something that has impacted him in a negative way. He just wants to have it honored, just like the other person had their personal background family story honored. Why is telling him no not an equal protection violation? And I think it is an equal protection violation, because understand what she's saying. And we're gonna keep going, and I'll go into it. All races be treated equal. Justice Jackson and Mr. Strawbridge. Now, certainly UNC shouldn't give a legacy benefit if they don't want to give a legacy benefit. There's no obligation to do that. That's slick. That's real slick, Justice Jackson. No, but you, Mr. Strawbridge. And of course, a first generation college. And see, we get slick. And here goes Justice Jackson again. I'm sorry, but you said it was okay if they give him a legacy benefit. And what I'm saying is that in almost exactly the same set of circumstances, a student or an applicant who is African American and who would like to have the fact that he's been in North Carolina for generations through his family and that they've never had a chance to go to his school honored and considered and it's bound up with race, you say, I think he's not allowed to say that, and that the university is allowed to take that into account. Now, and because it relates to race, precisely because it relates to race, I think you might have an equal protection problem. Saying that he can't get credit for that when someone else can. And let me just come out of this for a second. Because what's bound up, this instance said bound up, what's bound up in that comment too is that whiteness is legacy. And not only whiteness, people who can integrate into whiteness is legacy. So when you talk about what's happening now, even the initial ruling of Bakke pushed us out of legacy, pushed us out of lineage, and pushed everybody into lineage. And it pushed them into our lineage as a shoehorn. It pushed you into our birthright. We have been denied our birthright, slavery, Reconstruction, all of that, Jim Crow, all of it. So what happens is we get denied our birthright. Somebody gives a remedy. People don't like the remedy, and they say, well, we're just going to use this for diversity. Whiteness is legacy, and everybody who's been able to integrate into whiteness is still part of that whiteness legacy. It's not about melanin. It's not about features. It's about normalization in America. So even when the Chinese or Asian who brought this case say, hey, we've been discriminated against because we're Chinese, you can't even say that because you're white now. Remember the good immigrants when we learned when we were slaves, they were going to Ivy League schools. You have been made white, and you're not even, it's not even a whiteness in terms of Asian, because that's not, we understand that disaggregation means that they should be disaggregated too. It doesn't make sense for them all to be, doesn't make sense to clump in a Chinese person with a Japanese person, with a Filipino person, right? Those are different lineages, but the people suing are the people who've been made white in America. So you can't say we've been discriminated against in a minority when you look at Chinese American, they come over here elite and they have wealth on par or above white people. You have made it. You don't get to apply as a minority. You have integrated fully into whiteness. This is why this whole minority stuff don't make no kind of sense. Never made sense. Certainly don't make sense today. Not forever, ever, ever. In my view, did it ever make sense? But today is a day it certainly don't make no sense, because whiteness is legacy. Whiteness is lineage for them, and it has always tipped the scale. At the point to which you lived, this country had slaves, and the slaves were us, right? At the point to which you had people say you couldn't go to school because only whites go to school, only whites sip from this water fountain. You cannot have a race neutral ruling in a racist country. It don't work that way. When you have tipped the scale, ain't no tip the scale. When you have put bricks on the scale and shut a whole other group out, you cannot in 2022 come here and say we are going to try to figure out a way to read race neutral. Child, you haven't even dealt with the racism that we have dealt with. You haven't dealt with the lineage question. And the lineage question is not a race question, because you can come over here from Congo, you can come over here from Nigeria, you can come over here from Ghana, you can come over here from wherever, and you can come over here and mark black. So lineage is something outside of what is considered flat blackness. See, people want to have flat blackness and they want to have it both ways. Well, I want it to be flat when I can go get a job or when I can get affirmative action, but outside of that, I want to say I'm something else. So I want to say right now that lineage is a proxy for blackness. Well, it can't be. That's something that was said in this case too. It can't be a proxy for blackness if y'all have created flat blackness in this country. You can't have it both ways. What we gonna do, flat, or we gonna do whatever? I say we do lineage, and the court did too. So let's continue with it. Let's continue with it, fam. Let's keep on keeping on. Okay, we'll go to this one. We ain't gotta go to that one. Okay, and this one they just tried to figure out. It said Justice Gorsuch. Oh, I understand. He's a smarty pants shot. Oh, he's an arrogant one. But he's smart, but he's arrogant. I understand that too. But I guess my question again, just to get to the core of it, rather than circling around it, is how can you do diversity, which that's what you're arguing for, without taking account of numbers. Mr. Park, our interest in what we believe that Grutter requires of us is individualized holistic review. And I think there's actually been a lot of misconception that I heard in the cut right off. But if you don't, you have to achieve diversity, right? You have to achieve diversity. You have to achieve diversity. Without, how do you achieve diversity without looking at numbers? Let's go to the next one. Here's Alito. What is your goal, and how will you court? This is wild. What is your goal, and how will a court ever be able to determine whether your goal has been reached? Our goal is to achieve the educational benefits of diversity, and I understand that it is a qualitative standard that is difficult to measure, but I do not believe that a standard merely being qualitative means that it's not susceptible to rigorous review. Yeah. See, the problem, what they're getting at is the problem with diversity. The problem with diversity is that, you don't measure diversity, you achieve diversity. That means that it doesn't end. And these people are looking for an end game, because you're supposed to be remedying something. And this is not a remedy. This is just a state of being. And courts are not usually in the business of kind of maintaining like some kind of state of being forever. There's a situation that needs to be remedied, and that's what it's for. So the way that this diversity question gets in trouble is because it's in perpetuity. You have to say we're going to maintain diversity forever, which means that we're going to consider a lot of stuff that people don't consider to have to do anything with learning. Like, why do you have to be in a diverse classroom to learn chemistry or biology or whatever the case may be? We're not just talking about sociology and political science. We're talking about everything. And there was not a convincing answer. Now, there's a convincing answer if you say that these people come from a specific lineage and were oppressed because of that lineage that comes all the way from slavery, and we can consider, it doesn't mean time's up, but we can consider a sunset of racial set-asides or racial remedies when we close the lineage wealth gap. Let's reconvene here when we close the lineage wealth gap, not the racial wealth gap, because that includes a bunch of people that are not ADOS. Some people are poor, and some people come from elite backgrounds, so you have to disaggregate. What that means, though, is that when we can come back, that's a measure for you. When somebody asks you, how do we know when we are on the right track? Not when we're finished. When we tracking right. Because you can stop right there and people can throw you right back in the hole you just climbed out of because you too quick out the hole. When we have closed the lineage wealth gap, we can then consider how to sunset, and then we can consider when to start up again. Diversity doesn't have that. That becomes a problem. That becomes quite the stickler. So let me try to get on through this. Another section. Justice Barrett. This court's precedents, Grutter also says, sorry, let me put my readers on here. She's putting the glasses on, child, or whatever. She said, they call them readers, child. I didn't know nothing about that. They call them readers. She said, let me put my readers on. I just saw some. Hold on. Sorry, let me put my readers on. Using racial classifications are so potentially dangerous. However, compelling their goals, they can be employed more broadly. Going down a little bit further, all governmental use of race must have a logical end. Reasonable durational limits, sunset provisions, and race-conscious admissions and policies. And I gather, Justice Alito saying, when does it end? When is your sunset? When will you know? Because Grutter very clearly says this is so dangerous Grutter says this is great. We embrace this. Grutter says this is dangerous and it has to have an endpoint. And I hear you telling Alito there is no endpoint. Yeah, that's what he said. Because even if you don't have an endpoint, you should be able to point to a metric that actually makes sense. And you can't do that when it's diversity. So you have people in here arguing two things that don't make sense or don't go together. They're irreconcilable. You can't argue. You absolutely cannot argue redress and diversity at the same time. Right? One is past tense and one's future tense. Diversity says we want to put a bunch of people in the room because we think they make better decisions or whatever. This says I'm trying to fix the Negro. And that's what LBJ said. Those two things are irreconcilable. And I honestly believe that part of the reason it was put forth to be decided this way wasn't to save it, it was to kill it. Because this doesn't survive a court test. It just don't. It just doesn't. Oh my God, I'm reading something right now. That's just awful. That is just awful. Oh. We really don't understand who we are. We really don't. We don't. Hold on a second. I don't see how you can do a program that will never end. Yeah. I don't see how they can do that either. And let me say something else. Let me go back to this real quick. Chief Justice Roberts. I don't see how you can say that the program will never end. Your position is that race matters because it's necessary for diversity, which is necessary for the sort of education you want. It's not going to stop mattering at some particular point. You're always going to have to look at race because you say race. You have to look at race because you say race matters to give us the necessary diversity. That's true. You're going to always have to say race matters because you said race matters. Here's something else that's interesting. In the period since Grutter, in the 2 decades since Grutter, that we have more experience with states. Pay attention to this. I want you to listen very closely to this. With states that don't allow race-based admissions, California, Washington, Michigan, and others. And those examples show with greater confidence that we might have had in 2003 that some of the questions we were asking before of some of the race-neutral alternatives cannot have the risk of treating people differently on the basis of race on the file, but at the same time produce significant numbers of minority students. Now I want you to go back to this real quick. Since Grutter, we have more experience with states that don't allow race-based admissions. This is why we need lineage-based admissions and not race-based admissions. So how is it possible? And how does it make sense to not allow lineage-based admissions or race-based admissions? I'm not talking about just people with melanin. But if you can have the University of California waiving tuition, see, that's why you'll say, well, we see more Native Americans, whatever. If you get free college, you see more of a lot of people. If we got free college, you will see a lot more of us too. We just don't get free college. And it's not just, I've showed y'all this before. It's Michigan, the Michigan Indian tuition waiver. Now, if we're gonna do lineage, because I guess this is lineage, what else is this, ethnic? Okay, fine. How can you all get something that's specifically for you all? That's a set aside for you and we can't get it. Let's just make it lineage based. It doesn't have to be race based. Let's make it lineage based and let's get free college and free tuition for where we go. At least pay for my stuff when I get in. Because you're going to tell me that California doesn't do race-based admissions or whatever, but they do race-based free college or ethnic-based free college or lineage-based free college. I want somebody to tell me how that's fair. To be eligible for the waiver, which is granted by the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, a student must be the following criteria set by the state: qualify for admission at the institution and be one fourth or more Native American quantum blood certified by the student's tribal enrollment department. Wait a minute. So I can't have some kind of set aside. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a set aside. And it's happening more and more often. Hey, listen, politics chooses winners and losers. Colleges are making tuition free for Native students. Will more students graduate? Now let's get to the other little nitty and the gritty. Right? Justice Kavanaugh. I'm just making sure what qualifies as race neutral in the first place. What if a college says we're going to give a plus to descendants of slaves? Is that race neutral or not? I think descendants of slaves is a very difficult question because it's so highly correlated with race. In the history of our country, I'm sure that any college has I'm not sure that any college has proposed that kind of preference. It would be, when's the last time you heard anything about descendants of slavery? When's the last time that's ever happened? Well, Justice Kavanaugh, well, I know we have to think forward about what will happen if you prevail in this case. And that seems a potential. So I'm curious about your answer to that question. Why does it seem a potential that we're going to go in the direction of lineage and American descendants of slavery to the Justice Kavanaugh? Because we made it all the way to the Supreme Court. My instinct, this is Strawbridge, standing here, is if that were the only basis, then that he is struggling. Then that very quickly starts to look just like pure proxy for race. That doesn't look like proxy for Native American when they get free college. What's proxy for what? It would obviously depend on the actual program, and it was as implemented. He's still struggling. Could you give a plus to applicants whose parents were immigrants? Hold on. I think you, Justice Kavanaugh, is that race neutral? I think that if it is immigrants regardless of country, Justice Kavanaugh, yes. Mr. Strawbridge, regardless of their racial descent, I think that is probably closer to being okay. So they're telling you that they can give you a birthright. They can give you a birthright to immigrants. They're not going to fix you. They just have to be race neutral. Understand? A racist country is telling you that, like, what has to happen now is that all the processes have to be race neutral. And it's not that way for everybody else, but they're telling you, for you, they can give it away to somebody who just got here because that's race neutral. They can't fix you. They can't fix the thing that they did. They can't apply justice under the law, but they can give something away to somebody who just got here last week, last year, 20 years. Now, that person could have immigrated. That person could be a brown person and have immigrated to a racist country. And under the rules that we put in place, but they can get it. I can't, you can't. And your kid can't. I'd be real nervous. I'd be real nervous right now if I had kids. And I want them to go to school. I'm just saying. Justice Sotomayor had an interesting question. How do you want an admissions officer to say, I'm not going to look at the race of the child to see if they had all the socioeconomic barriers present, despite that they had very, very high scores, maybe a little lower or a lot lower SAT, but I'm going to think about that. You're asking them to just shunt that aside. Yeah, you're asking people, even when you get to college, to not look at what you overcome to achieve what you achieved. And that's what she's getting to. And here we go again. Justice Sotomayor, so why is it that in the Reconstruction era, just when the 13th and 14th amendments were being passed, Congress spent a lot of money trying to get black children who were children of slaves to be integrated? What she's saying is, and let me just say this is something I want to say too. Because I don't think people who talk about integration really understand integration. It's not about whether or not whether or not the white man's ice is colder. That's not what it's about. What it's about is whether or not people have the right to shut you out of opportunity. This is America, baby. And guess what? We are not the majority. Integration is not about, it has never been about whether or not, oh, y'all just want to chase and go do business over there. Y'all got to do business over there. It's about what they can shut us out from banks, schools, institutions. It's not about just one thing. You don't have I can go where I want to go, but you have no right to shut me out of anything, because shutting me out of anything is shutting me out of everything. Shutting me out of anything is shutting me out of American life. You have no right. Let me put up a couple more that I think are important. In fact, when objections were made in Congress that this is a racial-based law, the people who supported the Freedmen's Bureau denied the charge. They didn't say yes. But so what? They said, no, it is not. It is not a race-based law. So today, a benefit to descendants of slaves, here we go again. I just want to keep hitting this. So today, a benefit to descendants of slaves would not be race-based, correct, Mr. Norris? I think that's incorrect, Justice Kavanaugh. Well, how does that? You just said a benefit to former slaves was not race-based in the Freedmen's Bureau. How is that different now? Well, the remedial exception that this court has recognized is fairly narrow. It has to be prior. Justice Kavanaugh, the question is whether it's race-based. Mr. Norris, right, okay. He couldn't answer that. He could not say it's race-based. He could not say a lineage-based descendants of slaves guarantee was race-based. He tried to get around and say it's race-based. The other guy said it was a proxy for race. He tried to get, well, okay, I don't know. First I heard of, I ain't heard of descendants of slaves. Lineage is not race-based. And that's why you got to get out of race. This whole court case just made the case. It was a bunch of trash in here, a bunch of trash arguments, but it made the case that the only way you can apply a narrow remedy to race is through descendants of slavery. That's it. Descendants of slaves, that is it. That is the only way you can come before a court and say this is based on a cost that we endured. It's not based on race. It's not based on hair. It's not based on that. That is the opening. They gave us the opening, because it sounds to me like Kavanaugh was saying the same thing. It don't sound like that's race-based. And that's the Freedmen's Bureau didn't say it was race-based. This is cost-based. This is lineage-based. There's a lot of black people who are in America who do not have this story. There are a lot of minorities in America who do not have this story. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the window through which you enter this whole conversation. And that is the foundation that ADOS has laid for this what? Conversation. Right? That's it. That's it. Look. I think that the benefit for former slaves was not race-based. That's the same thing. That's what we were just saying. That's the doorway. And that's the doorway we kicked down. Before then, everybody was just talking about African American, Black American, blah, 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 blah. It's not about that. Nobody in America, nobody white in America is going to give somebody who just came here some kind of whatever. You can't even prove it. If you don't come from slaves, you can't prove anything. You can't prove any harm. You have to prove a harm. That's the whole point, is being able to prove this is the harm. This is the harm that we endured, and this is why we need X, Y, and Z. That is it. There's no other way to do it. That's legacy. Our lineage is legacy. They got a legacy benefit. Our lineage is legacy. So, I mean, to me, fam, that's it. That's the deal breaker. That's everything. We have changed the context of the conversation. And what you saw, and if you go and listen to it, because you can listen to the audio if you want to. I listened to the audio and I scrolled through today. But go and listen to it, go and read through it. and go and read through. You can go and read through Becky. You can go and read through. You can go and read through Grutter. You're not gonna see this kind of what about lineage. That's where we are, and it's hard to see this because there's so much pushback. But that crack is open. That door is open. Now the question then becomes, are we going to get serious enough to push through that kind of door? I'm not talking about how long it takes, because stuff takes a long time. You know, King didn't live to see us sitting here, none of this stuff. He died on a balcony. Like, you don't, Fannie Lou Hamer, she had a horrible life fighting for her people. I'm not saying what's going to happen to you. And if you're worried about comfort, I don't know what to tell you. But I'm telling you, and I'm asking you, what are you going to do? Are you going to get serious? What everybody going to do? You going to hang out with, who are you going to hang out with? Somebody who can't explain this, who don't know how to talk about it, spend too much time on cell block A or whatever, and is just grifting and putting, what are you going to do? Because this is the time to figure out what you're going to do. Ain't nobody going to give you nothing without a fight. They slightly open the door and peek through it. They ain't going to kick it in for you. They don't even like you. Don't even like me. Where is today's Thurgood? These are the questions, ladies and gentlemen. So, you know, I'll end it right there. I have one more thing I want to bring up, but I'll bring it up after the break. And we can have a conversation about it. Okay? I'll open up the phones. Keep it easy breezy. Give me a couple of minutes as usual to do that. And then we'll have a conversation. We are back. I just saw a poll. I want to tell you, I just saw a poll. I'm not going to bring it up, but you can look it up. It's a YouGov poll that shows most blacks. Hold on. Let me see what it said. It says, let me just read it to you. It says, Americans back the end of affirmative action and want race kept out of college admissions, new poll suggests. So, yeah, this is America, child. This is America. I wonder what it says. Americans back. I wonder how the Negroes feel, because Negroes ain't talking. Y'all know Negroes went real quiet. We can talk about all kind of stupid stuff all day. You can talk about Kanye all day. But when it comes to talk about something that affects your child and the livelihood of your child, or whether or not you get what was promised to you, it's not just the 40 acres that was promised. It was a lot of stuff promised, but hey, you know, everybody want to let it go by the wayside. So, all right, everybody can make it do what it do. Let me bring in the first caller. I am going to 910. 910, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, I don't know. Are you
Hey,
online with me?
I'm talking to you. Yep.
Okay, good. I know you saw that video going around where the people were talking about, they were complaining about the candidates, and the woman was like, well, do you know who your local representatives are? And they were like, no. So I was like, okay, well, I don't know mine either. So I was like, well, let me go find out. So I'm going through, I'm searching on their platforms and everything. And then I realized that none of them support reparations. They don't really have a black agenda. So now I'm like, well, what do I do with this? Because we got the midterms coming up. What do we do if they don't have things that we're asking for?
Today is November the 2nd. Ain't nothing you can do with it right now. Okay? But but you have to organize around it. So, you know, that's why the chapters are, I know we tried to do, the chapters are coming soon. What has to happen is that you have to organize. Listen, part of what I said when I say people don't respond, politicians respond to pressure and not praise. They have to see, you don't go in there yelling at them either, but they have to see, like, these are our needs. And so you have to get the numbers, right? So don't even start with reparations, especially if you're talking about local, right? Don't start there unless there's already some kind of reparations thing that's coming down the pike and you need to address it. Start with the resources that you need in your community. So if your city or county is getting X amount of dollars, and you got to find out how much money your city or county is getting. Like, how much money are they getting for recreation? How much is the police getting? How much are they getting for this? Okay, figure out how much they're getting and then figure out what your needs are. What does your community need that it don't have? Now you go and advocate and you say, listen, you have these dollars coming down, whether it be, there was a lot of money that came down from COVID and all kinds of stuff. But when the budget come down and you have to say, listen, these are needs that we have. Listen, the homeless population here is this much. We need this much for that. Listen, the kids don't have anywhere to go play, right? Recreation. We need this much for that. You have to assess the needs of your community, and then you have to organize around those needs. I would start with that before I start with, especially if I'm local or state, I would start with the needs and the resources before I try to do anything locally on reparations or anything like that. I find out what money you need, what resources you need, and figure out where the money's going. That involves budgets. So you have to organize around it, but you can't organize around it if you don't know where the money is and what the stuff is you need, right?
Right.
Do you need a grocery store? Like, what do you need? Like, you have to assess that with other people. Y'all have to have a conversation. And that's why I always say we have to get back to being community with each other. We have to get back as neighbors and friends, talking about what's going on in the community, how to organize around it, problems in the community, whether it could be potholes, it's so many, depending on where you are. There are so many variety of problems that need resource in your community. Now, as a national movement, we organize around reparations, but locally and state, we organize around resources, and we organize around mobilization and getting people ready to be in this fight, because the reparations fight is a fight. And so if you can't fight for a playground, you doggone sure can't fight for reparations. So this is about your local, your state is a training ground for you to be ready to do what you got to do and to get used to it and to train leaders up to be who they need to be to step into place.
All right, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. And when the chapters roll out, you better be there now. I'm going to come look. Where you at?
I am.
What state you in?
I'm in Indiana.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Indiana. I appreciate you.
Okay.
You have a good one. I am going now to 256. 256. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, man, it's Trey Flay calling from Decatur,
What's
Alabama.
going on, Trey? How you doing?
Nothing much. I'm doing all right. Thanks for taking my call.
No problem.
But yeah, just watching this case, like you said, there's no Thurgood Marshall, right? Nobody that is arguing this case is trying to thread that needle for the descendants of slavery because it will rule them out. All of those people, the majority of those people who are litigating this case are people of color. So they don't want to be axed out. They don't want that affirmative action to be taken away from them. So they'll screw all of this up because at the end of the day, they'll be able to make it in America because they want to keep those who descend from slavery at the bottom. So when I look at this case and I see the leading on from the justices into descendants of slavery, into lineage, into legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have people who are trying to win this case not even going there with them because they don't want us to have things specifically for us. They want it to be broader for everyone. I read part of the amicus brief today from the NAACP, and it starts off in Brown versus Board of Education, right?
Okay.
But it ends in, statistics for Black and Brown students, statistics for Black and Latino students in North Carolina. And it's just like, at this point in time, like, you have Asians who are also people of color fighting against us for something that was supposed to be specifically for us. They weren't even supposed to be a part of it. They're fighting against us, and you still have people saying, you have our organization saying, people of color. So it's like, where do you go in this moment, besides Adolf, to get a real clear thought process on what's going on? Because nobody is taking this seriously. The lawyers aren't. The NAACP isn't. The NAACP filed an amicus brief. 5 minutes. Like 5 minutes before the case started, they running in with a paper like, hey, we here. Like, so it's just.
Well, and let me say this. Let's not forget. Somebody pointed out that the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which ADOS was on the Supreme Court steps for, right? Somebody pointed out that case was brought up. I didn't bring it up, but that case was brought up in the hearing. Now, here's the issue. The Supreme Court, the NAACP was there for DACA. When the Civil Rights Act of 1866, that was the next day. They didn't even stay the next day to be there for that case. They didn't have any protesters there. Wasn't nobody there but ADOS. So, if you look at it, NAACP has been complicit. The national, I'm not talking about local. I'm talking about the work, but has been complicit in setting this up to be a people of color thing and abdicating their responsibility to the people that they were supposed to serve. Here's my only pushback and what I wonder about in terms of what you just said. There are a lot of people who have been getting affirmative action jobs who are not us, right? We've talked about a lot of people who have been getting that. I don't think they understand too. That's falling out. That's going away. So the stuff that you might have gotten because you rubbed up against ADOS and you had people thinking you might be ADOS and you checked the black box. No, child, you got to compete. You got to compete against everybody. You just can't get a special slot because you marking black and they don't know, and that's the diversity slot. No. Ain't no diversity slot no more. All you people have been running around giving trainings, whatever, and saying the stuff that don't even help us. Like, you don't even do a diversity training that is a real diversity training for us. You punish a Negro who says something wrong. Well, we have to acknowledge our brothers and sisters. Like, you will do that. All of y'all who have been faking the phone for a long time, I think y'all in trouble too. But go on, Trey, I'm gonna let you finish up.
Yeah, what the difference between those lawyers and Chemerinsky, right, is Chemerinsky, when he did the 1866, case, he kept hammering the same couple of points home, right, just driving these points. And those lawyers didn't even do that. Like, they brought up white women being the majority of the people who benefit from affirmative action. Nobody double backed on that. Nobody, kind of picked up on that. And then just like my final thought, when the 1866 Civil Rights case happened, I was a part of the NAACP Next Generation Leadership Program. and we got we got an email the night before the case. I guess after they left DACA, like, and they were like, "Oh, we're doing an amicus brief, and you know, y'all need to, you know, stand behind us with this." And it's like, y'all keep doing the same thing when it comes to us. Like, y'all come in like the last 20 seconds, and then grandstand, do nothing.
Well,
like,
I didn't even. You know what's funny?
To go.
You know what's funny though, Trey? I didn't even see them. I know the amicus brief happened, but like I didn't even see them. Like I know that happened, but I didn't see them do nothing. What am I trying to say? Like, there was no energy behind it. Yeah, we offered this thing, but there was no kind of protest. Why y'all couldn't really get in there like y'all did with Dr. And even with that, like, whatever happened to the kind of protests and marches, not the goofball marches like we see, but like the real stuff that the NAACP used to do? It looks to me like you all don't have any kind of burgeoning support behind you, because what is really going on? But let me ask you one question before you go. White women are the largest beneficiaries of affirmative action. That's one of the reasons I'm happy. If it goes, it goes. That's fine. Because the call to action needs to be to codify it. Don't call it affirmative action. Call it something specific to ADOS, and it's very narrow, and it only benefits us, and it's based on lineage. That needs to be the call to action, to codify it in law. Just like people said, codify Roe v. Wade. I want you to codify this in law. So that's what needs to happen. But do you think the white women who are the main beneficiaries, of affirmative action, are they going to start fighting these people who got rid of it for them? Because the white women know what they've been getting. And they might not fight for it. They let everybody else fight for it, and they come in and get it. Do you think that they are going to start fighting somebody? Are they going to get mad at somebody for messing they hustle up?
You know, that's the craziest thing to me. I feel like white women act so freaking oblivious, right? Like, they feel like this meritocracy thing, this I am woman, hear me. I love when you do that, by the way. They feel like they have fought tooth and nail all the way to get the things that they've got. So it's going to be really interesting if they do get affirmative action to see all of these women roles on the decline. That's the only way that it's going to change is if they start losing these positions. And I really don't see them losing the positions because they're already there.
But will they get hired?
You know.
That's the question.
Will there be a new crop?
It'll be a new crop.
I don't think there'll be a new crop.
I don't know. The Me Too movement. I don't know. They might not want you there no more. You gonna say somebody great? I don't know. We'll see though. I appreciate you calling in, fam.
All right, no problem.
Appreciate it. It's a lot going on at one time. I'm going now to 313. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
313.
Yeah, what's going on, fam?
What's going on, Yvette? I appreciate you and Tone. I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. My grandfather's heart, my father's heart, and my ancestors.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? You got the fight going on.
Appreciate you.
But what's most important is that you're not in the fight alone.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Absolutely.
It's time for myself to step up. I'm out here in Massachusetts by way of Detroit, you know? Mm-hmm. And I'm here to say I need to play my part to get in the game. I can't just leave it on you and Tone. I'm in the factories. I just got a new job. My grandfather was building cars in Detroit, and here I am in Massachusetts building my own thing. I don't want to put it out there because you never know who's listening, but I'm just saying. I'm here to do my part. So I'm signing up.
Hey.
Foundation Advocacy Group. Let's get it on.
Let's get it on.
Hey, ADOS, let's stand up.
Yeah, we got to. I mean, that's what this movement is about. And I think chapters coming soon, I think everybody's gonna have to suit up. This ain't no time to sit it out. Not if you want a future. Like, this is like it's they about to make it a rap tap. And Negroes are sitting around like they don't understand what's going on. They don't know who shot John, who shot Charlie, and who about to steal third base or first base. You can be oblivious if you want to. There's just a consequence. That's all I can say about that. Thank you, fam. I appreciate you calling. I appreciate you calling in, fam. Sure appreciate you. I'm going to try to get to well, not all of them, child. It's a lot of calls. But I'm going to try to get to some of them. Right now, 317. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, Yvette.
Hey.
I've called in before.
Okay, how you doing?
It was a couple years. It was like, I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty
I'm
good.
crazy to call. I'm a little nervous,
That's
but
fine.
I want to say thank you so much for like what you've done, like with the Adolf project. You and Tone, I don't think you realize like the impact you've had on so many people.
Oh.
I wanted to quickly just say that I'm in college currently. I'm a junior and I'm studying journalism, but I'm minoring in political science.
Okay.
And this case has really been on my mind. I sit in like my political science classes and I just hear like my white college peers just talk about how they're ready for affirmative action to like just leave and stuff. And one of the main reasons I'm in college right now is because I am on affirmative action. Here in Indiana, we have a 21st Century Scholars Program, which is just you get like free tuition and they pay like fees and stuff like that.
Okay.
And so you have to sign up like 7th to 8th grade. So the main thing I'm here to say, I guess, is like so many people my age, and not even just my age, that aren't really invested in this case and don't realize like the magnitude that it will have on their lives. Like, how do I get more people interested in this, like people my age and just parents in general in my city, to be more invested in this case and just reparations at large?
Well, it's hard. I think, I honestly think the first part is like, to like help people understand that like the government helps everybody, right? So because you'll have people say, well, I don't want no help. Like, we feel embarrassed, and I think you have to show them like, look how much Native Americans got from COVID. Like, look how much Latino groups got from this. Like, look how much white farmers got subsidized, right? I think once people start to understand, no, everybody gets stuff. That's how you win in America in terms of whether it's policy or whether it's resource. That's how you maintain safety in America. Like, is the police there just to pull you over and harass you and shoot you, or are they there to kind of protect you? Like, that depends on the zip code that you're in. That depends on whether you're poor or why are you poor. So how did that happen to you? Let's go all the way back. I think there's an element of shame that you have to get rid of. And I think in terms of getting rid of the shame on something like affirmative action, you can point out that, hey, most of the people who get affirmative action are white women. I don't see them running around talking about how ashamed they are, how they're ready for it to leave. They just let us fight for it and then come scoop it up. So for us, I think one thing that has to happen is that you have to help people. And listen, you can only help people so far. I mean, I had people come years later and tell me, you know what, Yvette, in 2010, I thought you were wrong. And now I see that you're right. Fam, it's 12 years later. It took you 12 years to get there? Yeah, it took them 12 years to get there. And I'm not sticking with you them 12 years, though. Like, I just put the information out, and I'm going to tell you, but I'm not going to let you steal my joy. I just can't do that. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to plant the seed, I'm going to come back and try to put a little water on it, but then I'm going to leave. I'm not fighting with you, I'm not arguing with you. But I think that shame around help or around listen, this is your government too. This is my government too. Like, we should, this government not only owes us a debt, but it owes us protections. It owes us anti-discrimination law. It owes us help in the way of affirmative action, which really should have been called something else, something not as just like arbitrary as that. But people are ashamed of slavery. People are ashamed of getting something from the government because you have conservatives, here they come with their Obama phones and their food stamps, and don't talk about how much federal services red states get, right? And that sort of thing. So you have to kind of break down. I think once you break down the wall of shame, you do better. But the other part about it is how so many people who are they're just so oblivious, and they're so willingly oblivious. People will be in a political science program and not know nothing about the news or not know nothing about what's going on. What are you doing in this program then? Why don't you go stack bricks somewhere? I mean, if you're not interested in the topic, you have to be a concerned citizen. Like, you have to be a person that's concerned about what is happening in your country and what's happening to your people. If you are not interested in that, I do not want to hear from you when your child gets that rejection letter, because you know how they do. People, my baby is an AB student and they applied to blah, 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 blah. Well, AB student usually means a 3.3, 3.4. You got kids with 4.5s or however they do the stuff now, like coming out of school, and your kid is not there. They ain't did all the extra stuff. They don't come from schools in rich neighborhoods where they got all these resources, all these prep programs, so they didn't score as high on the SAT. And so they're going to put your kid up against this kid with no kind of help, no kind of thought about race or diversity, none of that stuff. And I don't even like diversity. But they're going to put your kid up against that rich kid. And your kid's going to lose. So when your kid loses, don't come to me and be like, well, Yvette, I don't know. He did real good in school. And I don't understand what happened. Me neither. Leave me alone. Because I'm not even going to explain that to you.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Well, I was going to say, to your point about the concern, like being a concerned citizen, like right now, me and my mom, we spoke at the IPS school board recently, last week actually, Thursday, and they're pretty much, talking about like shutting down like two elementary schools in like this one neighborhood, neighborhood, and so we couldn't even get enough like parents at the school to like just sign our petition, and so I'm just so kind of frustrated, like. How do you deal with like frustration as well? Like do you just? Well,
I think you got to get people. I think you got to get people. You got to get people with you though. You can't be in the I was in this Obama war by myself for years. I remember Dr. Cornel West talking, about Obama, and what he didn't do, and I remember them getting on him, and they were getting on me the same way. And like being by yourself is really hard. I would not recommend it. Because I was from 2000.
We don't want to, but it's been so difficult trying to get these parents to. We got a few, we got some parents, but like just not enough to really make some noise, So
well,
we talking about going to some of these churches on Sundays, trying to get people to support us.
Well, I think you should, and I think you should, and you better bring your Bible verses with you about why they should do it, because you got to speak people's language, and that's the language that you got to speak. Yeah. But I wouldn't get frustrated by it, because you have to understand too that like how people react to certain things and what they say, that has more to do with their inner world than you. So like if you don't get somebody, it's not because of what you did. It's because of what they did. And honestly, you tell me you in college? Do you have kids?
I'm sorry, say again.
Do you have kids?
No, I don't have any kids. I'm only I'm 21. I'm in
Child,
college.
Listen. Help, do what you can. But listen, it's the main job of the people who have the children. If you're talking about schools and stuff. Yes. I think you cut your teeth, and I think you do the best you can. But don't ever forget, like if you're doing some school stuff, what in the world if the mamas and daddies ain't here? Now I will help because I'm a part of the community. But you're 21. Don't miss out on none of your young years worrying too hard. Do your work and cut your teeth and learn how to do this work. But don't you get so invested that you get frustrated. You are 21. You will never be 21 again. So do your work.
You're right.
Do your work, but know when to cut it off and go get yourself some Taco Tuesday and hang out with friends and watch movies and do whatever. Like you have to have balance is what I'm saying. And if you don't have balance, you will get really, really frustrated really, really quick. And you just don't want to get too bogged down. You want to do it so you learn how to do it so that you get good at it. And eventually, the way you talk to people will get better. Eventually, you'll be able to figure out what works and doesn't work. Eventually, you'll talk to somebody and they'll get a light bulb and they'll say, you know what, you're right. But that takes practice. Don't get frustrated by that. You young enough to where you got a lot of time to get this right. Chapters roll out, and then you'll have some comrades, like the little people say. That's not what I say, child. They be doing that stuff. They be doing big comrade. That's the red roses. But where you'll have some company in what you're doing. But don't let this stuff take you too far down a path that you don't want to be on. Because being alone is hard.
I definitely understand everything you're saying. Would you mind if I plugged our petition, or are you not into it?
No, go ahead, plug what you want to plug, child.
So it's change.org, save school 56. Change.org, save school 56. That's our petition. We're looking for as much support as we can get, and it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for letting me.
No, and throw it in the chat. Throw it in the chat too. You can throw it in the chat too. So if anybody can help you, whatever. Throw it in the chat or whatever, and how people can reach you. Just Twitter, not your real email, none. But if you want somebody to DM or send an email somewhere, and see what you can get. All right.
Okay. Thank you so much, Yvette.
No problem. You have a great one.
You too. Bye.
Now I am going to 312. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hi, Yvette. This is Scott from Chicago. How you doing?
Pretty good, Scott. How about you?
Can you hear me?
Pretty good. I can hear you. What's going on?
I'm doing good. Awesome. I'll make it quick. You covered this desire for whiteness by Asians and everyone else, and I just kind of think that the desire to pursue whiteness in this country is so intertwined with American life. You can't be comfortable in this country without pursuing whiteness to some kind of degree. And it just kind of blows my mind that these Asian students actually believed that by overturning affirmative action will increase their numbers at Harvard or anywhere. They actually believe that Harvard wants them, when Harvard actually told them that they have personality issues. And that was in the Supreme Court hearing. They brought up how Harvard would score these Asian people very low on personality ratings. And there's a lot of truth to that, because they also said that the Asian students would pay to have their applications appear less Asian, which is kind of sociopathic behavior, in my opinion. So, of course, you didn't get accepted into Harvard because you're kind of a sociopath. You want to submit an application, your personal application, but make it seem like something not like you. When African Americans, when we submit our applications, we make it as black as possible. We use black paper, black ink. We take it into the kitchen when our mamas are cooking and wave it around. We want our applications to be black as possible because we are proud of that.
Look, I remember. Look, our application. Look, our application was. I remember when I was cooking cornbread at Grandma's feet. That'd be our application. Go on, fam. I'm sorry.
Exactly, and it just blows my mind that they actually think Harvard wants them. And
yeah, but they did say something. But they did say something about that. They did say something about. No, you're right. They did say something. I remember that too, about personality, because that's part of the metric about getting along, and that's part of it. All that is part of it. So no, I remember reading something about that too. But go on, fam. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but just a closing remark, no matter what, in all situations, whoever pursues whiteness, no matter what group, it will always hurt us. So it'll always hurt African Americans, and that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, fam.
Thank you for the show tonight. Appreciate you.
No, appreciate it, fam. Thank you. Ooh, yeah, that's true. I'm going to 912. 912, what's going on?
Hey, Yvette, this is Bernard.
What's going on, Bernard?
So I have a question. So these justices, across both sides of the ideological spectrum, where did they get this language from? Was it in Cobra, the CBC? Was it the NAACP? Where did they get that from?
Yeah, where did they get it?
I thought Adolf was dead. I'm going to say it again. Everybody told me that Adolf was dead. So where did they get it from?
I don't know. I thought we was xenophobic too, but they said descendants of slavery, and they made a distinction about people who come from slaves, and nobody said, "Oh my God, these Supreme Court justices are so xenophobic." Did you hear them say that? No.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of that. I saw them lay a whole blueprint out about how we can get something rolling once they strike this diversity thing down.
Well,
that's all.
Well, they said it's the only thing that's even possible, and they might strike that down, But they said that they basically said that, listen, this is the only thing that we would really kind of take seriously. That's we would even really consider. That's what it sounded like to me, and I just didn't hear nobody call them names and say they were anti, and say that that's just hate, that's just black hate. I didn't hear none of that. That's just very interesting to me.
It's real interesting to me. I mean, shouldn't people be calling Ketanji Brown Jackson a right winger?
I didn't
for
see
even
it.
Bringing up slavery, I'm just saying.
I didn't see it. I didn't see none of that. And you know what? Let me say this, but now I haven't heard much of anything. I'm looking around the Twitter sphere, and everybody got quiet. People just talking about this person over here is just talking about somebody did something with a sheet and threw it over there. And this person over here ain't saying nothing. People talking about the World Series. And it's just even if somebody said to me, well, maybe they know that it's gonna fail, and I'm like, there have been so many times that in life, not just in this era, where we know the Supreme Court is gonna strike down something, and still everybody's talking about it. What is the radio silence on this? The radio silence was the same way in Jackson when we were talking about the water and everything was happening there, we didn't hear anything from Negroes. I'm talking about, we heard stuff from Negroes who were activists, Negroes who were concerned, who lived in that area, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the powers that be were not saying anything. There is like this, I don't know whether it's the midterms or what, like there is this blackout. And I think maybe it's because they're using our language and there's no way to kind of, they expected black versus white, and it's really turning into, what about descendants of slavery? Is that right? And they don't have the language and they're kind of frustrated. I don't know, but I'll let you finish, fam. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. And also when I was looking at these arguments, not only did they kind of set a blueprint of something that might possibly work when they strike it down, you know, I posted on Twitter how I noticed, I was like, wait a minute, they're here trying to find some new type of diversity for these schools to consider. I mean, it literally almost looks like these proceedings were primarily focused on ways to cut us out of it, which I'm not surprised about, because all you have to do is put a black face on a policy if you want to kill it. Because I even noticed in a lot of the rhetoric of liberal, so-called liberal Asians, when they talk about affirmative action, they point the finger at us for certain reasons. And I don't understand any of that, because we know how, for example, Chinese people, even during the Chinese Exclusion Act, they would bring over students, and we saw the Ivies actively recruit them with scholarships and stuff. So it's kind of like, you want to act like this whole government, your government, and our private institutions didn't put the thumb on the scale for you for like 100 years. And now that we're the supposed face of it, you want to take it away. Mm-hmm. And that's also kind of where I have a disagreement with your last caller. I think they do want Asians to a certain extent. And the reason why I say this is people holler Asian discrimination, but what you're forgetting is that, like, they're only 6% of the population, but at these Ivies, they go up between, like, 20 and 30%. So you're talking like 300 and 400% overrepresentation. The fact is, they want the whole pie. Like, and they can't get the whole pie. Maybe because Harvard says, like, you know, we don't want our whole cohort full of Asians, because, yeah, some of them seem to be sociopathic or weird or whatever, but the point is they still get to have, like, at least 300% representation at most of these, like, elite universities, including the Ivy. So I'm kind of like, what are we talking about here? And I think I do think the last caller was right about this. I think what's going to happen once they strike this down is places like Harvard and them, they don't need more Asians necessarily. When you look at their SATs and their GPAs, they're already kind of maxed out. And they can easily find other white students who, like, go to these elite boarding schools and whatnot that have similar stats to Asians, and they going to just say, oh, well, they had a better personality in the interview, so we're just going to bring that person in. Like, there's no reason to add to the 300% overrepresentation of Asians. They can easily just replace the black people or the ADOS people that they no longer admit with another white person. So I don't know how white conservatives convince Asians to team up with them to go against us. Well, but I'm like, I think outside of the context of public schools, like, it's not going to work out for you.
Well, it's just a condemnation of this kind of like minority unity, because all of the diversity people were like, oh yes, we're going to include everybody, Asians, and we're going to include Chinese. Well, that's fine, okay. But then these are the same people that came and bit you in the butt, right? In terms of like if you were trying to do something for diversity, they were like, no. So it just goes to show you different groups have different interests, right? And so you have to be very clear about that interest. And there's no such thing as a minority interest. It just doesn't exist. Throw the whole term away.
Now, one thing I want to just leave with is, notice how they were trying to bring in the immigrant president. Like, I thought that was kind of wild, given, so like I said, or I said probably in some calls backwards, I went to Emory University, and I think I already saw a preference for international students in particular, because, like, as in, like, they can maybe have, like, lower SAT scores, like, especially on the English part, for example, mainly because, like, when you're any type of international student, like, whether you're an immigrant or maybe you're technically international, but you're in a school in America or whatever, you actually have to show documentation that demonstrates that you can, like, basically provide full payment.
Yep, I was just about to say that.
They're already biased towards them because they want the money. Mm-hmm. So imagine them being able to add an additional boost for just saying, like, oh, that's an immigrant.
Yeah. Yeah, and imagine,
I'm just saying.
and imagine them, to get an additional boost. But it also looks like, because this is affirmative action, and it's admissions, but you got to think about it beyond admissions. So what if you could have an affirmative action employment slot where you could get where you could get a boost, right, for being an immigrant. So you get a boost,
but just for being an immigrant.
Yeah, but I don't as ADOS. You get a boost as an employee for just being an immigrant, for wherever you're from. But because that's race neutral. But I can't get one when this country has dragged me through coals after I built the country for 400 years. Like you just got to think about. Everybody needs to be thinking about what that means, and I don't see enough people talking about. People still trying to talk about Kanye.
Yeah. A lot of people's heads are in the sand and they silent, like you said. They better wake up real quick. I'm mad at the dude who responded to Reggie, or who Reggie was talking about. He was like, we are, like, us, being in the coalition is a black remedy. I was like, diversity, it was just demonstrated how it's not a black remedy.
Well, just go.
And you're still saying that.
You ain't got to worry about it. Everybody gonna learn. Everybody finna learn. And everybody finna hit the ground hard and fast. And once you hit the ground, if you can't figure it out, then I don't know what to tell everybody, but people finna hit the ground. People finna hit the ground. You about to be walking around just here splat, 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 splat. Who hit the ground? Like, let me watch out, because everybody, like, it's a lot of hitting the ground finna happen. That's all I'm gonna say. It's a lot of hitting the ground is about to happen. Because people are not watching, people are not paying attention. We have abdicated our political responsibility, even in terms of this movement. A lot of people have been running around acting stupid. I run this with, doing silly stunts and foolishness. Everybody want to pretend like they came, and it's just like, it's a problem. Our political seriousness is a problem. The people who we allow to pretend to lead movements because they can tie a tie or whatever, it's a problem. And everybody needs to get that together. Or not. If you don't want to, the chapters will tell me everything I need to know. But if you don't want to, then just prepare for the people around you to fail. Because policy is what undergirds everything. It picks winners and losers. And they've just told us that they finna pick some losers. That this finna pick some losers, right? Now, I'm okay with it because it was diversity. It was too much. It was decided wrong. Throw it away and let's rally around building the right thing. But if people don't want to do that, okay, well, give your kid a map and they finna drive Lyft. And I hope nobody grab them by the neck or nothing while they drive, because it's a wild, wild world picking up hitchhikers. But I'll let you finish off, Bernard.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm going to end it there. Thank you for letting me talk. And let's see if we see Pan-Africanism and some dashikis come up in these proceedings one day. I'm sure it will.
Hey, listen, I saw your boy, Dr. Carr. He was talking about getting together and Pan-Africanist groups and stuff is the best affirmative action. I put on Twitter, that's like draping. That's like a do for self with some draped in a dashiki, wasn't it? That's some weird stuff. So it's a lot of people.
I don't know. I hope they enjoy their time at the Disney World or Six Flags or wherever they go in with their fantasy land. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I hope Dr. Carr and them have fun.
All right, child. He's in a delusion. He needs some medicine, child. All right, I appreciate you, fam. Thank you. And let me just say one thing. Somebody asked me the other day, what's wrong with driving Lyft? What's wrong with driving Lyft is that you shouldn't have to. Because Obama ushered in a whole era where all of the labor wins were just thrown back, peeled back. Now you gotta liquidate your car. You don't have no kind of insurance. You don't have no kind of protections. You don't have no union. None. That shouldn't happen to you. Don't get so prickly. Ain't nobody talking about you. I'm talking about what you do and do not deserve as a life. I'm going now to 857. What's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind? You there, 857?
Hello?
Oh, you there, 857? Yep.
I'm 857. How you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain. How about yourself?
Good. I'm doing pretty good, too. Haven't called for a while. This is Karen from Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I just had a thought, excuse me, when you had said, you've been looking around, but it's awfully quiet out there. Nobody's saying anything, it seems. Mm-hmm. And I just had this thought, well, they're all listening to you tonight. Because they don't know anything about what's going on, but they're all waiting to hear what Yvette says or Tone says, and then they're going to come out there and try to act like, you know, they know something. But people are getting ready to flip because I just love you explaining and going through what the judges were saying. Because I you know, when you were explaining, I was saying to myself the same thing. What are they saying? Not Americans, but descendants of slaves. This is our wording. This is our stuff. Where people, you know, with this foundational this and all this other crap. But just wait, because they're all leeches and vultures. You know, they're gonna flip a script because this is gonna be heard around the world, and people are hearing it. So I just know there's so many people out there, they just wait to hear what you're saying, Yvette, and then they just try to jump on board and try to act like it's all news coming through them. So that's why they're quiet. They're listening to this tonight. But you give it a few more days, they're going to be running whatever you say, as if they came up with the concepts and the ideas themselves.
Yeah, they'll come out. Yeah, this, you know what? People of color don't make no sense. What? What?
It doesn't. You know, so, you know, everybody's trying to get a bag. Everybody's trying to be heard, and they think that's the way they got to go. But you know what? Things are getting ready to change. Things are getting ready to change, and it's because of you, the time, the effort that you and Tone have put into this. And we love you out here, and we're with you.
Love you back. Thank you so much.
But like you said, this was like the crack that we need to move forward, knowing that is that crack for us, and we can do it. Because I'm telling you, I know we deserve it, but there's been points where it's like, I don't think it's going to happen, and it's not going to happen. They will blow this America up before they'll give us what we're due. But you know what?
Hey, blow it
that
up.
Conversation that them judges were having, I'm like, you know what? We can do this. We can do it. So, you know, I just love you. I'm with you. I'm waiting for the chapter to come to Massachusetts.
Absolutely.
I heard that other brother calling from Massachusetts. There's quite a few of us out here.
Yeah.
So we just need a chapter together so we can, you know, kick this thing off.
Absolutely. It's coming. Y'all rough. If y'all can survive in Massachusetts winters, y'all tough. Y'all some tough cookies. So I know y'all can do it. I appreciate you.
And we've been the first in a lot of things.
Yeah.
And you know what? We're behind you. And I'm just waiting for the word.
All right, it's coming.
Get out there and start, you know, doing what I can do to help.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I got a grandchild. She's 8 years old. And you know what? I want to make sure before I leave this earth that I've taken care of her. Because I've said many a times to my people and my friends, you know, we've let our generation and the one before, we've let our kids down. And I believe that's why they don't give us the respect. That's why, you know, we've let everybody else educate, do whatever they want to our kids, and we've let them down. So you know what, before I leave this earth, I want to do everything I can to make sure that she has a future for her. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And that's what we all should be thinking about, talking about. It ain't for us anymore, but it's damn sure for our kids. I can leave this earth saying that, you know what, I know she's going to be okay.
Absolutely. We can end on that, fam. I thank you so much for calling. That's what it's supposed to be about. Because you're supposed to love you back.
That's right.
That's right. Because you're supposed to leave something for your kids. And if you don't leave something for your kids, you absolutely should die fighting for it. Like, what's the point of bringing a child into this world if you're not going to leave them nothing? You're going to leave them a struggle? Nah. You leave them a struggle if you got to leave them a struggle. That means they got to continue to struggle. But, child, that means they got to continue to fight. But you should have fought. You fight hard enough, you're going to get something out of this thing. Shake that thing enough. No, let me go to the next one. 360, what's going on?
Hi, Beth.
Hey.
This is Antoine calling in from Seattle.
Hey, Antoine. What's going on?
Hey. Well, a lot is going on. I have a lot of things on my mind, and without sounding like a madman, because I can't connect it all succinctly, there's just a few talking points. a few callers have already touched on it, but my concern was primarily how swift will this, pseudo ruling from the Supreme Court move to the private sector, and particularly state agencies, when it comes to allocating and distributing resources. Because I remember it was something I read back, I believe it was The Color of Law or The Color of Money, one of the two, but it was like when there was housing discrimination, they didn't, in some instances, they left how the racial covenants came about was like a state level interpretation or something like that of the ruling, but left it essentially to white racists to interpret the law as they saw fit and to start making changes without actually having a ruling in place. I forget what they called it, but do you see something like that similar happening? And then how to then take advantage of these voids that's going to be left behind? Because for me, particularly, I live in Seattle, and it is welcoming to an extent where I see other, I hate using this word now because I understand what it means, people of color, or particularly those who are the Black diaspora, welcoming me with, open arms. It makes me feel good, but to a certain extent, I'm like, well, you're not necessarily from my same lineage, so even though I might be friendly with you, to an extent, you're at some level, you're competitive with me, and in some regards, you've already replaced me. So, how then to maintain those conversations or those sort of like tethers socially to people, or will that just all fall apart? Because it seems to me in a city like this where there's already low ADOS representation, there used to be a lot in Seattle, but we're all gentrified out. Now it's primarily Asians, and to some extent they're being gentrified out of the community here too in Seattle. I don't know if people see that yet, but they are. And with all the construction and like just how the economy is working here locally, how to move on this void and galvanize this ADOS discussion here and present it to the youth, because it seems to be, one of the catalysts we need in, gaining traction in these cities where there's not a lot of representation for ADOS, but they're very important because Seattle has a lot of the American economy tied to it. Microsoft, Boeing, Amazon. I mean, there's just several others, right? But there's so much wealth here, right? So it's like if you can get a city like this changing its narrative and its politics would speak a lot to the greater country and open up other opportunities for employment and other things like that, resources within the ADOS group. Because right now, a little behind. I'm still reading the last book in the group discussion, the model minority. I'm almost through with that, but I'm still trying to get the information underneath me. Still trying to talk to my mom, who lives here with me. Still trying to talk to my niece and nephew and my sister. I'm originally from North Carolina. That's where my family lineage is tied. We've been there for centuries. But moved out here, about a decade ago for school and just never left the area. But like, how does that work? And then, just as a last thought, and because I want to give other people time to talk. Like, when you were saying about, it was a few conversations ago, you were saying Lyndon Baines Johnson knew something deeply, more deeply about the Negroes than we knew about ourselves, in the sense that he said that, once we passed his bill, we would have them voting, Democrat for forever, which he was right. He said we did. Yeah. But do you think the language in the affirmative action and the prior policies that were passed after that, like the Immigration Act of 1965 and all those other amendments, was that done purposefully to now, in a sense, kill affirmative action, not just for ADOS, but for other groups who they knew were going to tether themselves to it? Because, you said white men were the chief benefactors of affirmative action, but now with affirmative action essentially being dead, it's like it's already dead in a sense, right? They're already going to be moving towards lineage based. What does that do for groups like LGBTQ, and then also, white feminists who push back against like these changes? Because it seems to me that the LGBT at some point was trying to gain traction through the affirmative action bill, but now that it's no longer going to be an opportunity, how do we, you take advantage of that, avoiding power as well.
Well, I think all is going to fall. I think a lot of it's going to fall apart. Because you got to understand that, like, diversity was everything. Like, diversity was, it was LGBT. It was brown. It was indigenous. It was just flat black. And to your first question, how quick does it fall apart? I think it falls apart pretty quick. Because I think a lot of places have been kind of hostile to a lot of this anyway, and they don't necessarily like it anyway. But you get in trouble for not having like these kind of diversity conversations and workshops, which a lot of them, not all of them, right? Some of them are decent, but it's just like a lot of them are just like it wasn't what it was supposed to be. So I think a lot of this stuff happens fairly quickly. I think schools are the first that will be free to act and say, guess what? We ain't got to and we ain't gonna. But I think a lot of that happens quick, fast, and in a hurry. To answer your first question, I think, I'll say this, I think we're in the middle of an enormous reset in this country. And the powers that be know it. And I even think there's a reason, I've said this before, I think that the Immigration Act came right after the Civil Rights Act, because that was the play. We're really not going to give these Negroes anything. We're going to try something different and try something new. We're not going to make them American. So, because remember, the promise during the Immigration Act was that there would not be an influx of people, right? It's not going to really change that much. America's still going to be America. And rightly or wrongly, however you view it, that's not what happened. And so I think that, there are people who, you can't prove none of this, but there are people, I believe, who are playing a very long game. LBJ was playing a long game in the sense that if I do X, Y, and Z, we'll always have the Negroes voting for us. Because one of the things he knew about us that we didn't know about ourselves is that we're extremely loyal to a fault. And this is something that has to change. You can't be loyal to party. You have to be loyal to agenda. Those are very different things. So we're in a moment where we have to learn and figure out how to learn fast or either fail fast. Either learn fast or fail fast. Those are the only two options. So it is what it is. Thank you, fam. I appreciate you calling. I'm going to try to get in like maybe one more. Thank you. One more caller, and then I think I'll end it for the night. Going now to 718. 718, what's your name? Where you calling from? What's on your mind?
Hey, Yvette. Hey, fam. This is Claudio from Brooklyn.
What's going on, Claudio? How you doing?
Nothing much. This is right in my wheelhouse as a constitutional guy. Like, I always followed this kind of stuff anyway. But I think just to touch on what a lot of other callers said, like, I think we should take this moment not as one of despair, but like you said, the fact that like the language of our movement is the language that is now being employed to start to like figure out where we go next as we unravel kind of the mess that diversity as a proxy for remedy and repair for ADOS has become. It's only because of the work that like you and Tone and now the organ is going to take the baton on, the work that the movement has done. Okay. So like for somebody like me who's watched constitutional law cases, like it was always on the horizon that affirmative action would end. When Sandra Day O'Connor was like, oh, what do you think? Like 25 years, we're good? Like I already knew like this is going to be a wrap one day. So the question would have been like, what happens afterwards? And if it's not for our movement, if it's not for ADOS, like you think any of those folks on the Supreme Court would have had the language to deal with this? They would have been stuck in flat blackness. We would have had kind of Pan-Africanists kind of pushing more of this kind of global thing. So I don't know where we would be if it wasn't for the work that everybody in the movement has put in, like, to date. And then, in the longer version, like, this decision will probably come down at the end of the term in June. And, ideally, we won't have chapters online and stuff. So, like, all the energy that everybody has right now on this call and just on the web and in real life about this, like, we can't lose that or let it slip between now and June. Like, we've got to kind of channel that so that when it comes down and they say, you know what, we're not doing affirmative action anymore, we're ready to say, okay, cool, well, this is how it looks like when you make it based on lineage. Here's what it looks like when you make it true to its original intent. And here's how it is as a piece of a broader reparations package and black agenda. Like, we don't need just, affirmative action, but we need affirmative action and. So, like, I time, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Claudio. Absolutely. We got to get the language right and figure out where do we go from here. That's always the question. It was King's question. It's our question, too. Appreciate you, fam. Got to.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I just, you know, and that's, we're going to end the calls right there. I appreciate it. But I am of the mindset, fam, and this is just me, and I think you have to be this way in life. You know, there is no place for despair. Like, there is just no place for. Now, that don't mean you give yourself fake positivity. That means that some days are a little bit rough, and some days are rougher than others, and some days are whatever. That's just the way life is. Life has changed. Everything evolves. Everything's changed. That's what you're promised here, right? Among other things. But like everything, whatever you lose, whatever loss you learn, or whatever, and you figure it out, and you tinker some more, and you figure it out, and you tinker some more. Like, failure really only exists in your head or somebody else's head. It don't really exist as a thing that exists in and of itself. So, you know, I think we just have to keep that in mind. Like, you know, our people were slaves. You got to think about what it meant to watch somebody whip somebody, or watch somebody hang somebody from a tree, and then still, there were people in that group who were like, you know what, one day we're going to be free. I'm sure people were like, they delusional. He crazy. Did he get into the moonshine? And it's just like, no. Like, you have to say, hey, you know, we're just going to keep working from here. Right? That's what it's going to do. I got probably 100 years or less, and I work from here. That's what I do. And I'm going to find joy in that. It can't be something that you kind of begrudge, you carry around as a burden, and it's just rough and tumble. No, it has to kind of be that way. And I think part of the problem with us and the group in general is that, like, more people should be carrying this. And that's what's going to happen. We're going to have to grow the numbers and have people carrying this and understand why this has to be carried if they don't have to go over an economic cliff. And that's going to be the hard part. But got to do it. It is what it is, fam. It is what it is and what it was. So we're going to end it right there, family. We're at about 11:30, almost at the 2-hour mark. Keep it easy breezy. When you get a chance, just, you know, take some time. If you don't have time to, like, sit down and read it, just put it on audio and just listen to it. It's interesting, and I think it furthers the political culture. It's something good to kind of talk about with your kids and just, you know, talk about what they think and get the critical thinking skills going, because they ain't gonna have affirmative action unless we get our stuff together. So, you know, one of the things we talked about here is just having a political culture, and this kind of furthers that. So try to do that as well. And fam, I will see you next time if you're on Patreon. I will see you tomorrow. If not, I will see you next time, in a week. Keep it. Well, I'll say that. Well, I don't think I'm going to be here next week. I think I'm going to be, I think I'll be in Louisville for the West Louisville Forum. So I can't say I'm going to see you next week. I almost lied. Can't stand a liar. I'm going to be in Louisville for the West Louisville Forum with Dr. Cosby and Antonio. So I will not see you. I will not see you. I think I'm going to be there. I think I'm going to be there Tuesday, Wednesday, and I think I leave, get there Tuesday, do the West Louisville Forum on Wednesday. I think I leave on Thursday, so I don't think I'll be here. And I don't think yeah, fam, so I got that right. Okay, but I'll update everybody on Twitter or whatever, or put it in the community section. But yeah, I almost forgot. Anyway, fam, keep it easy breezy. I will talk to y'all next time. All right.